Superman and Lois, episode 13, failsafe, because you gotta have a failsafe. So, in this episode, it takes place after the previous episode where Superman and John Henry, when Steel, when he rescued Superman from being mind controlled, and then the two of them, took down Morgan Edge and they brought Morgan Edge to justice. Throughout this entire episode, we were taken into Morgan Edge's history with the dealings with his father, like when he was a boy, when he was a teenager. And throughout the entire thing, you can tell that the one thing that Morgan Edge desperately wanted was family. He wanted more Kryptonians around so he could be amongst his own people. And, he wanted to talk to his mom. Like, there was a point where his dad had said, he was just like, oh, go out there and find the crystal sun, find what we need, and then come back, and then we'll resurrect our people. And then he was just like, well, Dad, he's like, yo, can I talk to my mom one last time? And he was like, no, you can't talk to that wench. And then he was just like, but please, Father. He's like, if I could just have her counsel. And he was like, no. He's like, you are not permitted to speak to that woman. He's like, just go. And he's like, okay, Father, I love. And his dad cut him off. So he didn't get a lot of love from his dad. He never got to talk to his mom. Then they showed us a scene where he was older. And when I guess his dad finally told him, when he said, he's like, oh, Kal-El, he's Superman and he's your brother. And he was just like, oh, he's been here this whole time. He's like, I had a brother here this whole time. And he's like, I could have connected with him. And, he has the mark of the House of El. And then the dad was like, screw the House of El. And then, he was really upset. And it's weird because, the whole thing that's driving Morgan Edge, his whole motivation is based on family. It comes from a desperate place of wanting to have actual family around you, which is why, when Clark chose Earth, over resurrecting his own people, that's why Morgan Edge was just like, oh, he was like, you can't, he was like, you're all traitor to the cause, like Kal-El. But then he was like, but I can see in your eyes. He was just like, oh, the feeling of letting go and letting all straight. He was like, you should be a god on this planet, but you hold back and you prevent yourself from letting your true nature take place. But he was like, I see in your eyes that you want the power, you want to release the power all over these puny, pathetic human beings. But he was just like, you can't ignore it forever, Kal-El. Then Kal-El walked away. And then, because they said that, his assistant, they still got to find her. So he was like, if you won't, so Clark was basically like, if you don't want to help me find your assistant, he said, I'm basically going to leave. And this is the last time me and you are going to speak. And then he dipped on him. Clark and Lois basically told the boys, they're just like, listen, when y'all go to school, everybody's going to be talking about the Morgan Edge situation. They're going to be talking about how Morgan Edge brainwashed people, gave them superpowers, and myself, along with your grandfather, who works at the DOD, along with Superman, they helped take him down once and for all. They're just like, just keep the family secret. Don't tell anybody anything that they don't need to know. So the boys go to school, and then when Jonathan's at school, everybody keeps asking him questions about oh, we heard your grandfather works for the for the DOD, and what really happened, and he tries to ignore everybody. And then that girl with the dark hair who I guess was giving him the flirty eyes, but then when he actually asked her out, she was like, nah. She came up to him and she was like, oh, can we hang out and we go somewhere? She basically got him alone so she can try to get information from him, because she, just like everybody else, wanted to know about the Morgan Edge thing and what happened. And then once he found out she was really only talking to him, just so she can get the information, then he just got kind of mad. He got disappointed, really, and he just dipped on her. Jordan and Sarah basically, they skipped school because Sarah was just like, everybody's cursing out my family, blaming my family for what happened. She's like, the last thing I need is to be in school right now where everybody's going to give me the side eye. Because one girl shoulder checked her, and I thought that was pretty funny. And then, then Jordan was just like, all right. He was like, well, if you're not feeling it, he said, let's just go somewhere. So the two of them go somewhere, and then, they end up going to the forest. And while they're in the forest, the cops, the truancy officers catch them, and they actually bring them to the police station and lock them up. Jonathan came home early. He was talking to John Henry Irons, and then Clark ran up on him and he was like, bro, why aren't you in school? So now, Jonathan got busted for skipping school, and then, Jordan got busted, for skipping school as well. Only the difference is when he got arrested. Lois ended up, she was talking to her boss, and her boss was just like, oh, people need answers. People need to know what's going on. She's like, as the reporters of, as the news of the town, we need to tell people what's going on. So Lois was like, all right, let me go try to get a statement from my dad so we can shed some light on the whole thing. Her dad basically was like, nah, I'm not making any statements. And he said, we need to keep it that way because we can, you know, because we can't let too much information out because we're trying to like keep the people from panicking. But then Lois was like, oh, the people are panicking now, Dad, and they need answers. And then he brought up an interesting point. He was like, well, what do you want me to tell them? That you know, that Morgan Edge is Superman's brother, you know, like, and he used like he used Kryptonian magic to basically like infiltrate people's brains. He was like, I'm not gonna tell everybody that because it's gonna put our family at risk. He was just like, you know, we're just gonna put out a basic statement and then that'll be enough to calm everybody, you know. But she was just like, oh, but you know, but you can't. She's like, but you got to give a little more. And he was like, I'm not gonna do that. So then Lois goes back to her boss, and then she was just like, oh, he doesn't want to give a statement. And then she's like, oh, and the boss is like, oh, I don't know why he doesn't want to give a statement. You know, what's the big secret? And then like, what is he hiding? And then she's like, oh, do you know what he's hiding? And then Lois was like, nah. But then she was like, oh, you're lying to me, Lois. She was like, oh, people need to know the truth and you're covering for the DOD. And then Lois was like, it's not that simple. It's like, he's my dad. Like, I know what he's hiding, but he doesn't want to talk about it. So I can't really divulge that information. And then she was like, oh, we're the press and our job is to, you know, like divulge the information, not protect the government. And that's where I kind of lost it with her boss, because I'm just like, Lois flat out said her dad doesn't want to comment on it. So even if Lois knows the truth, but she can't get her dad to go on record and say it, then you can't print the story, because then it looks like Lois just made something up out of her ass, you know, when you're not getting an actual statement from the government. Like, it was almost like it was very uncomfortable, because it just seemed like her boss wanted her to exploit her family connection to get answers. And they're keeping certain things quiet for a reason. And, you know, and even then, I don't even know why Lois even allowed that whole thing to drag out as long as she did, because all she had to do was just be like, yo, he ain't want to say nothing. And I don't know why. I just left it at that. But whatever, it turned into like this whole big thing. So now Lois is upset. Like, Lois is pissed. Both their boys just got, you know, like Jonathan skipped school. Jordan got arrested. And, you know, everybody's on their way home now, you know, to do God knows what, and everybody's mad. Clark, on the other hand, he hooked up with John Henry Irons, and the two of them were talking and having a conversation. While the two of them were talking, the DOD basically called them, and they were like, yo, we found Morgan Edge's assistant. So both Superman and Steel, they went down to go fight this chick. Superman fought her, you know, like they were going like toe to toe, and then she was just like, oh, you going to win, Kal-El. And then Steel comes out of nowhere. He blasts homegirl, knocked her in the next Tuesday. She fell on the ground. They locked her up. Superman and Steel did the fist bump, and then they took her to the DOD. So then after they got her in prison, both Steel and Superman were just like, all right, so we got the assistant, we got Morgan Edge, this whole thing is over now. And then he was just like, not really. And then he told both of them, he said Project 773, which was basically like the Superman protection protocol. The general was just like, listen, he said that what I'm going to do is all the weapons, all the kryptonite, everything that we use to build as a failsafe against Superman, we're going to destroy it all and dump it in the ocean. Because he was just like, I misjudged you, Clark. I didn't think, he said, I thought that once you got turned, we couldn't get you back. You proved that your heart is stronger than your mind. And my apology for doubting you is, I'm going to remove, he said, I'll keep a little bit around just so we can keep Morgan Edge and homegirl at bay. But he said the majority of it, we're going to toss that shit in the ocean. And then Clark was just like, honestly, I don't think you should do that, because the world does need a failsafe against me in case something happens. And he said, I think it's a bad idea. And he's like, if I were you, I wouldn't get rid of all the weapons and I wouldn't get rid of all the kryptonite. Which is very contradicting, because in Supergirl, in season 2 of Supergirl, when Superman showed up for the first time, the reason why Superman did not want to work with the government was because they had kryptonite. So now we've come full circle into the complete 360 on that, you know. And then after that, then the general called Lois, and he was just like, yo, there's something wrong with Clark. This fool actually wants me to keep the weapons that can kill him. So now when Clark gets home, Lois is already angry because she got into it with her boss. And her boss was like, oh, if you can't tell me the truth, Lois, then you should leave. And I was like, bitch. Yeah, so she's angry at that. She gets home, and then she's just like, oh, what do you mean you want my dad to keep the weapons that could kill you? And then he was just like, oh, by the way, you know, Jonathan skipped school today. She was like, that can wait. She's like, you know, we need to talk about this whole kryptonite weapons thing. And then they got the phone call that Jordan got arrested. And then Lois was just like, you know, one thing I will say about Lois does get scary when she's angry, but she also does a very good job of being mad at people, but acknowledging her own fault to begin with. Because she even said, she was like, listen, I know I'm angry right now, And she said, I feel bad that I yelled at you, but I'm also mad at what you said. And then she's like, I got to stay mad right now because I need to go curse out our son when I bail him out of prison. So, so she was just like, we'll just talk about this later. And she dipped. Lois goes and bails Jordan out of jail. And then, Lana and her family, they were basically like, they got a visit from the mayor earlier in the episode. And the mayor was just like, oh, don't worry, folks. He was like, the mayor's got your back. And, I'll set the record straight. When Lana came out of the prison after bailing her daughter out of jail, she overheard the mayor talking to one of the officers, basically blaming her entire family for the whole situation. So she confronted the mayor, cursed him out, and like now she's mad, and then she took her family home. When Clark and Lois got both boys home, then they were just like, listen, like you can't skip school, and then like you both are grounded, and just because certain things happen, and that doesn't give you right to skip school. So like they sent them off, they sent them to the room, and the two of them got grounded for cutting school, and that was basically it about that. Lois and Clark had the conversation about the weapons, and then Clark just reiterated, because at this point Clark had to tell her straight up. He was like, I'm not just suggesting they keep the weapons just because I want a plan B. He said that when I was being controlled by General Zod, there was a moment where letting loose felt good, and I actually liked the feeling. And then that's when Lois shut up, and she was like, oh. He was just like, there was a moment where, because he said that being around all these people, being around mankind, I constantly have to hold back. I constantly have, just like with the Justice League, with the series finale of Justice League Unlimited, when Superman fought Darkseid, when he was just like, I feel like I live in a box and I have to be careful not to break the box because I don't want to hurt anybody. So he was like, he never gets a chance to like let go. But he said the fact that he actually likes letting go, that scares him. And because it scares him, he feels that there should be a failsafe against him. And then Lois finally came around and she was like, fine. She said, I agree with you that might be a good idea, but she said, I don't trust it in the hands of the DOD. So then they decided to give the kill switch for Superman to John Henry Irons, which he was not comfortable with at all. And I thought that was funny. Because he was like, bro, I'm trying to live. He's like, I'm trying to find a new life. I'm trying to live life. He's like, I don't want to walk around with the Superman kill switch in my pocket. And he was just like, yeah, but you're the only person that I trust that'll do the right thing. God forbid something happens. So he agreed to do it. The two of them shook on that. And now John is going to go off and like do his own thing and try to like live his own life. But he's going to have the Superman kill switch in his back pocket, worst case scenario. And then finally, Morgan Edge was in, he was locked up in the prison containment unit. He was having another flashback where his dad was just telling him, he was like, oh, my way is the best way. And then it was weird because his mind kind of went somewhere and then his eyes turned blue and then he just mustered up the strength. Like he busted free of the kryptonite, prison that they had him in. He blew up, like the whole base and then he took off. Superman showed up and tried to find him so he can stop him. But he was like, yo, I can't find him. And then we find out that he's in outer space and he's sucking up the energy from the sun. And I don't know where he got that power from. Like, I don't know. At first I thought the consciousness of his dad was in him, and that's not Morgan Edge anymore. That's his dad trying to take over. And I still kind of want to hold on to that, but the whole thing about being able to be stronger than kryptonite and busting through and sucking up the energy from the sun, I'm like, I don't know where that came from, so somebody need to explain that one. And that was pretty much how the episode ended. So thank you for tuning in. We have 2 episodes left. I've been saying for a while that I don't know how many episodes we're going to get. This is episode 13. So Superman and Lois is going to end at 15 episodes, which is pretty decent. Like I said, Doom Patrol had 15 episodes. So 15 is a weird number to have for a season, but it is what it is. And they're saying in the final 2 episodes, now that Morgan Edge is harnessing the power of the sun, we're going to get a lot of stuff that's going to go down. So with 2 episodes left, it's going to be all hands on deck. John Henry Irons is going to be there. Superman's going to be there. And I'm still praying that we get that John Diggle cameo, but we'll see what happens. So share your thoughts below because this episode wasn't very action-packed. The only action we really got was when they took down Homegirl, and that lasted a couple of seconds. This is more of a story-based episode where all the characters are like going through their story arcs and like reaching the pinnacle of their story arcs so we can find out what happens to them going in the next season. So let me know what you think of each character. Let me know what you think of like Lana's family, what's going on with her, the whole thing about Lois losing her shit, being mad at her own situation and then taking it out on everybody else, and where we're going with here as far as like Morgan Edge sucking up all this energy from the sun and how it'll affect everybody going forward. Definitely check me out on Twitter, check me out on Instagram, hit me up on social media as always. We got a lot of things coming up in the pipeline with DC TV. There's no Marvel coming up right now, but when it does pop up, we'll review that as well, and we'll talk about all the superhero goodness. So up and away, guys. And we're not getting Superman and Lois back until August 10th. So until August 10th, take care. Enjoy the time, and I'm out this bitch.